Okay. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Today's webinar is Financial Planning for Life in the Bay Area. And I'm Sage Urbez-Benson. I am one of the International Student Advisors here at BIO. And okay, so why are we here today? The goals of this webinar are we want to increase awareness regarding initial costs of attending UC Berkeley. We also want to share some best practices on managing your money while you're here in the Bay Area, and also provide some information on some financial resources and some financial aid opportunities. And just to let you know, these slides will be available to you, so you'll have access to all of the links and everything that we go over today. And there will be some time for questions at the end of the presentation. Okay, so we're going to start with a poll. So what type of program will you be attending at UC Berkeley? Undergraduate, graduate, academic, graduate professional, or the UC Education Abroad Program exchange, an exchange student. I'll give you all a minute to answer this. Okay. Looks like most of you have answered. Okay. All right, so let's see the results. So it looks like the majority of you all today are going to be joining one of the academic graduate programs, 48%. We've also got 23% who will be in one of the professional graduate programs, so quite a few grad students today. And then we've got a few undergraduate students. It looks like there are 8 of you, and also 5 UC EAP exchange students. So pretty good mix, but quite a few graduate students today. Okay, so let's see. All right, so while you're here at UC Berkeley, there's the Berkeley International Office. We also refer to ourselves as BIO, and we have some resources for you here, so we can provide some guidance on financial aid options for international students, also referrals for billing and payment questions, and also we do have some need-based financial aid awards specifically for international students. There's also the Bears for Financial Success program, which is part of the financial aid office, which is separate from us. UC Berkeley is a pretty big school, so we here at BIO, we mostly handle all things related to immigration, and the financial aid office will be your resource for most financial aid questions. But the Bears for Financial Success, you can meet with a peer mentor for financial wellness counseling, and they also offer financial literacy resources and counseling for all students. And again, you'll get these slides with the links to those resources. So just sort of an overview of the cost of attendance. So here we've got some numbers for undergraduate, and on the next slide we'll talk a little bit about graduate cost of attendance. So for everyone, tuition, well, for undergrads, everyone tuition and fees will be the same. And then room and board is going to vary depending on if you live in a residence hall, which a residence hall would be one of the housing options here on campus directly with UC Berkeley. There's also the option to live in an apartment on your own. That can be an apartment, a house, a shared house. There's lots of different options in that regard. And then also we have quite a few students who have family here in the Bay Area, and they will live with relatives. So room and board, if you're living on campus, would be $18,456. And then some of the other estimated costs are going to vary a little bit based on the sort of living situation you find yourself in. So the rent, food, and utilities, it will typically be a little more expensive to live on campus, but we'll go into some of the details about that. We estimate living in an apartment will be about $16,108, or living with relatives about $6,782 for rent, food, and utilities. Utilities being things like water, electricity, trash services. Then there are also costs associated with your books, supplies, all of your personal needs, and transportation. If you live on campus, this is going to be lower because you would not need to commute. There wouldn't really be any transportation costs related to going to school, but you will probably want to be going places on the weekend. Living in an apartment, those things will be a little higher, and often when students live with relatives, they're living a little bit farther out in the Bay Area, and so the commuting costs go up a bit. And we can talk more about that in a little bit. And then similar for graduate students, tuition and fees are a little bit lower, but they do depend on, for the professional graduate students who are here today, your cost will depend on your non-resident supplemental tuition fee, and NSRT, and also, typically for graduate students, rent, food, and utilities will be a little bit higher. Often undergrads could potentially be more willing to live in a larger shared house. Costs can go down if you have, 4 people living in one house, sharing the home. But a lot of graduate students prefer to live alone, which will make your costs a little bit higher. Okay, so tuition fees and health insurance, all of those are billed directly through Cal Central. So you all have access to Cal Central, and you should have all seen it by now. It's where you found the NIF when you completed your NIF for the office. So in Cal Central, when you're logged in, up at the top, you'll find a tab called My Finances, and in that My Finances tab, you'll find your billing summary and also some financial resources. And those payments are due by August 19th, and you want to make sure that you have paid by then to avoid any late fees. Payment method options for your tuition fees and health insurance would be through a US bank account with an e-check. You can also use foreign currency, Western Union, international funds transfer, or you can pay with a credit card. But there is a 2.75% fee charged for using a credit card, and you cannot pay your tuition fees with cash. So those are your payment options. And if you are living on campus, there are some housing options here that are part of campus where students can live. Live transcription. Oh, let me just turn on live transcription. Okay, I turned on live transcription so you can have the closed captioning. Okay, so if you live on campus, there are a few different options. Many of you today are graduate students, and so there could be a chance that some of you have families, spouses, or children. So if you do, then you have the option to live in University Village. And University Village is the student family housing for UC Berkeley students. And costs for living on campus are generally billed through the school, so you will see your rent payments billed to you directly in Cal Central, where we were talking about earlier. The costs are predictable, so it makes it pretty easy to plan. The cost won't change. You'll be, set for the year. I'm not sure about the regular student housing, but the student family housing also includes, it's one flat amount, and it includes your rent and all of your bills, including internet. And it can be slightly more expensive than off-campus options, but it's very convenient, and some students prefer to live right on campus. So then, if you don't live on campus, you'll need to find off-campus housing. So with off-campus housing, you will pay your rent directly to the landlord, and that's monthly. You pay them monthly. The costs can be pretty variable. Utilities typically are not set. If you live in an apartment, some apartment complexes will include some of your utilities. If you rent a house, often you have to pay all of your utilities, water, electricity, trash, on top of the cost of your rent. It can be slightly less expensive than on campus, but that sort of varies based on where exactly in the Bay Area you are, which we'll talk a little bit about in the next slide. One thing I did want to mention is I wanted to give you a quick warning about housing scams. So if you are not yet in the Bay Area, if you're still in your home country or somewhere else abroad, you might be looking for housing now. And there can be great options that you can find in advance, but be careful of housing scams. They do happen. It'll usually be an online advertisement on a site such as Craigslist or Facebook, and the contact person will insist that you send them money for your housing accommodations, even though you haven't visited the property. So be really careful of that, and if you can't visit the property before you rent it, you can do something like a Skype tour. Google the address, make sure it's a real address. So just be aware that you want to be careful if you are sending someone money before you get here. Okay, so renting off campus. Unfortunately, these numbers are from 2020, so they might be a little bit outdated, but it's the most current numbers we have. But this will give you an idea of typical rent averages. The Bay Area is very expensive for housing, and Berkeley is a little more expensive sometimes. It can be a bit cheaper if you go a little bit farther out in the East Bay, you get to Oakland or Albany or El Cerrito. And you might want to look on Google Maps if you find a place that's a little farther away, and you can check the commute time to campus. If you're near BART, it would be very fast. There's BART stops in Oakland and El Cerrito. Albany, that would be a little harder. You'd probably have to take a bus. But anyway, this kind of gives you a little idea of, a studio could be as low as about $1,900 in Berkeley, but going all the way up to a 4-bedroom house could be $6,600 in Berkeley. So there's a pretty big range, and sometimes searching for housing just takes a little bit of patience, but you can usually find a pretty good deal compared to some of the other things that are out there. Okay. All right, so, oh, we've got another poll. So let me just move this. Okay, so I want to know, where do you plan to live? Are you going to live on campus in UC Village? That's the student family housing that I was talking about. Off campus in an apartment or a house, or off campus with relatives. So I just sent that poll. So go ahead and let me know what you're thinking, or what sounds the best for you. Okay, we have a lot of answers. I'll just give you a few more seconds here to let us know where you think you might live. And if you don't know yet, you could just, you don't have to answer, or you can guess what you think might work best for you. Okay, so most of you have answered, so I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. And let's see. So the majority, 52%, said off campus in an apartment or a house, but pretty close. 42% said on campus. Okay, that's quite a bit. And then just 3 people said University Village, and no one has said off campus with relatives. Okay, great. That gives me a good idea. Okay. All right, so okay, so let's talk about some of the initial expenses for those of you who are planning to live off campus. So when you apply to live in an apartment or a house, there could be an application fee. There's not always an application fee, it's up to the landlord, but some landlords will charge you a fee just to apply for the house or the apartment. And this fee is to cover the background check and the credit check that the landlord has to pay for to look into your background. Then you will you'll always have to pay the first month's rent, and then landlords will do it a little bit differently. Sometimes you'll have to pay the first month and the last month. Sometimes you'll have to pay first month, last month, and a deposit. Or sometimes you'll just pay the first month and a deposit. And the deposit is often the amount that your rent is. But it totally just varies. But so do be prepared, you know, if we think back on that slide of how much rent costs here. So let's say, I don't remember the exact numbers, but let's say you get a 1-bedroom apartment in Oakland and it's $2,500, then you will most likely need at least $5,000 to give your landlord at the very beginning. Also, you will have to, in some cases, you'll have to start the electricity and the water service, and those companies will often require a deposit because you're going to be new to the country, so they don't have a history with you where you've shown that you will pay your bills on time. So they'll probably want a deposit from you to get those started. But again, like I mentioned, some apartment buildings you won't pay for water, or sometimes electricity. So this varies based on your apartment or your house. And then also very important will be your internet, which depends, you know, which company you go with, but generally it could be about $75 a month. Again, they also may want you to pay a deposit for your internet service. Okay, and then another expense to think about is when you fly into SFO, you then need to get yourself over here to the East Bay, to Berkeley. So if you take BART, so BART is the train system, and it's pretty good. It goes all around the East Bay and into San Francisco. So there's several different lines. If you just Google BART, you'll find their information. But if you take BART from SFO to Berkeley, it's going to be, we put $15 on here. It's probably going to be about $11 or $12 to take BART. If you take a taxi, that would be fairly expensive. You'd have to go over the Bay Bridge, and the taxi is average going to be about $90. There are also shuttle options. So if you just Google SFO shuttle, you can find some of those options, but those should be about $35. It's a van that will drive you and other passengers as well. And if you are planning to stay in a hotel when you first get here, again, the Bay Area is fairly expensive, and so hotels, you want to plan for about $200 a night for your hotel. And there are also options through Airbnb, which is another website that you can use to rent housing. Okay. Okay, I see there's a question. So if I am using Cal Rentals to search for an apartment, the cost, it appears, is the one including all these off-campus expenses you have mentioned. So Cal Rentals, I'm not actually familiar with Cal Rentals. I think that's the rental option where landlords will work directly with UC Berkeley. I hope I'm right on that. If, feel free to correct me. But so if the cost appears, okay, so it just depends. For all housing, all off-campus housing, the total expenses will depend on your landlord. So if it says $2,000 a month, you'll want to ask the landlord what is included, and does that include water? Does that include electricity? Does that include trash? And does that include internet? So you'll have to ask the landlord what is included in the rent. If I didn't quite answer your question, let me know. Okay, great. Okay, and deposits, someone wants to know, are deposits refundable? So there are, yes, they are refundable. So the deposit is, it's called a security deposit. So it's basically a way for the landlord to make sure that you can pay for any damage you do to the house. So let's say you have a dog and your dog scratches up the door, and it costs $200 to fix the door. Then when you move out, your landlord will, let's say your deposit was $2,000. Your landlord will take out the $200 for the door, and they will give you back $1,800. So in most cases, you know, it's pretty common you can get the whole deposit back. And interesting note is that if you live in Berkeley, your landlord actually is required by law to pay you interest on your deposit that they held. But that's only in Berkeley, not in Oakland. Okay. All right, so another expense that you definitely want to think about is a phone while you're here. So you'll have to buy the actual phone, which can vary widely from, you know, anywhere from $100 to $800. I think I would even say more than $800. You know, now some iPhones are $1,000. Sometimes you can get a discount with a contract of a year or more. And then the actual service itself is going to be anywhere from $50 to $100 a month, just depending on what kind of plan you need. The plan types, there's contracts, so you sign a contract with one company for 1 year and then you pay them monthly. And then there are also prepaid phones, so you just pay as you go, and you can just add more minutes onto your phone. So some of the providers that are pretty common are T-Mobile, AT&T, Sprint, and Verizon. Those are the biggest names. Okay. And then also, if you plan to get a driver's license, that'll cost about $30. If you're planning to get a driver's license, come talk to us for some information about that application. And then also, if you do purchase a car while you're here, you would have to pay insurance on the car as well. Okay, so other initial costs. So besides housing, what are some other first-time expenses that you think you might want to be prepared for? If you have any ideas, you can put it in the chat. Let me just see, there was one other question. Okay, so someone wanted to know about an application they submitted to UC Village about 2 months ago and you haven't received an answer. It can take them some time. You should be able to contact them directly. So if you have any trouble, so go online and look on the UC Village page and see if there's a way to contact them. If you have any trouble contacting them, go ahead and drop into our advising, our virtual advising, and we can help get you pointed to the right office. Because I think typically with UC Village, they don't let you know if you got a place until 30 days before. So let's say you requested a move-in date of August 15th, they wouldn't let you know until July 15th if you got a place. I think that's the case, but again, definitely check with them. Someone wants to know about the process for changing your driver's license from another state to California. I believe, so in my experience, when I moved to California, it's basically you still have to go to the DMV, you have to take the written test, and then the only difference is you don't have to take the actual driving test in the car, but you do still have to take the test on the computer. Yes, we will be talking about banking coming up a little bit. And is the tuition paid the same way as how we paid the admission deposit? That I'm not sure of. I'm not familiar with how the admission deposit is paid, but if that was through Cal Central, then that would be the same. You'll pay right through Cal Central. You'll see a billing statement there for you. Yes, we'll be talking about bank accounts. Health insurance. So there's a student who wants to know, is it possible to have another health insurance to waiver the one in Berkeley? That is possible, but that is something you would want to talk to SHIP about. So we're not really going to be able to cover that here. So you'll want to contact UHS and discuss that with them. Okay, I think I answered the University Village question previously, but yeah, talk to University Village directly if you're having any trouble getting a place with them. How much does it cost on average for car insurance? That is a good question. I really couldn't say. I will totally just give you a ballpark. Let's say anywhere from $50 to $150 a month. I'm just going to say it's like a ballpark. but that would totally be up to the insurance company, and they'd have to look into your situation specifically. Okay, so these questions are kind of about a lot of things, so I'm going to go ahead and pause on the questions and we'll come back to them at the end. So back to the slides. So some other initial costs you may want to think about are things like supplies you'll need for your home or your room if you're in shared housing. You know, you'll need to buy all your housing things that you don't bring with you, all the necessities: sheets, towels, pillows, blankets, you know, dishes, all those sorts of things. Your phone, your driver's license, clothing. Keep in mind, you know, we are in California, but it does get pretty chilly in the Bay Area, so you will need some warm clothes. Okay. So, okay, here we go. So setting up a bank account. So there are some banks that will offer special student accounts that have pretty good benefits with little or no fees. And what you will need to set up a bank account is you will need your passport, you will need your I-20, and you will need your money. Sometimes banks will have a minimum amount. It's not a large amount, typically, you know, a few $100s, but there could be a minimum that you have to deposit into the bank when you open your account. A social security number is not needed to open a bank account, but it is required to open a credit card. We mentioned on this slide Bank of the West. So Bank of the West is the official bank of UC Berkeley. It's very close to campus and they are very familiar with our international students. So you shouldn't have any trouble if you go there. But if you prefer another bank, just do a quick Google search, you know, banks near UC Berkeley, and there are several options very close to campus. And so there will be two kinds of accounts that you can have through your bank. You can have a checking account and you can have a savings account, and you can have both. So for your checking account, that'll be money that you spend on your regular bills and needs. It'll allow you to have a debit card and also a checkbook if you still want to write checks. Most people don't write checks anymore. But a savings account is designed for the money that you want to save over time. And you might want to use it for special expenses or one-time expenses. You know, if you want to buy a car when you get here, you might want to start saving some money in your savings account. And often savings accounts have limits to how many times you can withdraw from them. So a checking account, you can withdraw as much as you'd like. Savings accounts may have limits. And savings accounts will generally earn you more interest than a checking account. Some checking accounts have interest and some don't. Okay. So, as a new Berkeley student, some of you may be living on your own for the first time, or this could be your first experience living independently from your parents. So preparing a budget is a good way to manage your money responsibly. I'm a big fan of budgets. Budgeting is a lot of fun once you get into it. So we have a few helpful tips from Bears for Financial Success, which is I mentioned them earlier in the presentation. They are part of the financial aid department. So the first step to budgeting is knowing what your resources or your income are. So this could be, so what is the money that you have coming in to you? So you have maybe money from family support, loans, scholarships, maybe you have an on-campus job, so you would get some wages from your on-campus job. And so If you go to the Bears for Financial Success website, which we have a link for in this slide, they have some great resources and templates for creating your budget. So the first thing you'll want to do is list out all of your income and your resources. And then next you have to try to anticipate your expenses. So these will be either direct costs, which are things like tuition and fees, and if you live on campus, it would also be your room and board. And then you have your indirect costs, which if you live on campus, excuse me, if you live off campus, that would include your room and board. It also includes any of your school supplies, books, or any sort of technology you need, a computer, a tablet, anything like that. Your transportation, that's an important one if you're living off campus, getting a good sense of how much will it cost you. You do get, with your Cal One card, which is your student ID, you can ride the buses in the East Bay for free. So that's huge. But if you want to take BART, you will have to pay for BART. Then you'll also have your personal expenses, your phone, if you want to pay for cable, if you need to buy any clothes or shoes or toiletries, just all of your personal needs. And the direct costs are set. They're not going to change. Your indirect costs can have a little more flexibility. So this can take time. The first thing you'll want to do is, come up with the best idea you can. What do you think is the realistic number you will spend on school supplies? What is the realistic number you'll spend on transportation? And then it might take you a few months to really work out what the true costs are and really finalize your budget. So it'll be a work in progress for the first few months, for sure. Okay. So spending guidelines here is just a table or a chart to kind of give you an idea of, what should an average student spend percentage-wise on each thing. So you'll see the majority, 35% of your money, will be going to tuition and fees. And then the other really big chunk will be housing and utilities. You want that to be about another 32%. And you want to be careful not to go too much over that. And then food is the next biggest. That's a pretty big one, 13%. And then some of the smaller ones are the transportation, books and supplies, healthcare, entertainment, if you want to go do some fun things, and also clothing. So this kind of gives you an idea of what you should sort of aim for each category. So let's take a look at an example. So let's say your housing and utilities are $1,000 a month. Your food, you're spending about $250 a month. Transportation, $60. Your phone is $80. Your books and supplies are about $50. Entertainment, you spend about $50, and personal, $60. So then you're looking at $1,550 a month, which for your whole year, that's going to be $18,600. And there are some budgeting apps that can help you. I haven't used either of these myself, so I can't really comment on them, but I've heard good things about both of these, actually. You Need a Budget or Mint.com. Those can help you create a budget if you want to do that through an app. So next, let's talk a little bit about, we sort of touched on this, but fixed versus flexible expenses. So your fixed expenses cannot change and will not change. Your tuition, your housing, your utilities, somewhat, if you pay for water and your water bill is really high, you can try to reduce the amount of water you use. So that one's a little bit in between fixed and flexible. Your car insurance and your cell phone. So those are all your fixed monthly expenses or annual. And then the more flexible expenses, again, are like your books, food, entertainment, gifts and celebrations, gas or transportation. So those things are going to be variable depending on each month and what you need and what you want. So speaking of that, needs versus wants. So like I mentioned earlier, the Bay Area can be pretty chilly in the evenings, and if it's a cloudy or foggy day, it can be pretty cold all day. So you will need a hoodie or something similar. But you may want the Cal hoodie. Very understandable. So you have to decide for your budget, can you just buy the basic hoodie because that's the one you need, or are you able to save up and buy the Cal hoodie, which is the one that you want, but is more expensive? So to manage your money, it means you have to make choices because there won't ever be enough money for all of the things we want, unfortunately. So you may have to change some of your spending habits, and it's also totally fine to satisfy some of the wants every now and then. We all deserve some of the things we want, but we just have to reduce spending as much as possible. And actually, we'll talk about this a little bit more. So reducing spending, one of the best ways to do that is to focus on those flexible expenses we talked about: food, clothes, personal care, entertainment, and transportation. So, if the budget is a little bit tight one month, then that's the month you really want to focus on the things you need rather than the things you want. So for example, you might have to prioritize your expenses and focus on those needs sometimes over the wants. So this slide shows a variety of items a student might want, but some of which might not be as important. So students will have to make budgeting choices that prioritize your success as a student. So, it might be more important to focus on the tablet or the internet or your books. Prioritize those first, and then when you have more money left over, then you can splurge on some of those wants, like a manicure or the Cal hoodie or your Starbucks coffee. And speaking of the Starbucks coffee, one thing to think about is that all of your small expenses can really add up. So, if you buy one coffee drink from Starbucks and it's $3.50, it's easy to think, oh, that was just $3.50, not a big deal. If you do that for 7 days, that's $24.50. Still maybe not that big of a deal. But if you do that every day for a year, then you're looking at $1,227 per year just on those coffee drinks. Similarly, fast food can really add up quickly. If you buy one meal at $7 for 7 days a week, you're looking at $49. But if you do that all year, that's going to add up to $2,555. So if you add the two of those, if you get a Starbucks drink and a fast food meal every day, that's quite a bit of your budget that you'll be spending those on. So always good to think about how those small expenses can really add up over time. So what are some ways you can reduce your costs? The Bay Area has a lot going on. There's a lot of free events going on. There's free concerts, free movies. You can also volunteer to attend an event. So if there's an event that sounds interesting to you and they need volunteers, you can volunteer and then get a free admission to the event. Also, always be sure to ask about student discounts. So with your Cal One card, your student ID, you will be able to receive discounts at some places. A lot of restaurants around campus will offer a student special. Movie theaters will offer a student price. A lot of museums and things like that will offer student discounts. There's also things like Groupon, Living Social, SF Fun Cheap. Those are all great options, so just Google those and you can find some good deals through those. Also, there is the option to buy used textbooks online. So here are a few websites you can try. And you can also rent your textbooks from this website called Chegg. And then also don't forget, once you're done with your textbooks, you can then sell them back to recoup some of that money that you spent. Food is a big one. You know, we all spend a lot of money on food. So, you know, instead of buying that Starbucks drink, you can grind your own coffee beans at home and make yourself a special drink at home. There are some grocery stores that have pretty good prices. Berkeley Bowl that has 2 locations. One location is pretty close to campus. And there's also a store called Lucky's in El Cerrito, Ranch 99 Asian Market in El Cerrito, and Grocery Outlet. Those are all places where you can find some good deals. Berkeley Bowl has a huge produce department with a lot of really good prices on produce. And make sure you always shop with a list. It's much easier to stick to your food budget if you go to the grocery store with your list and, you know, you're not just saying, ooh, that looks good, or ooh, that looks good. And then for your phone, one idea is if you have some friends here who are also getting cell phones, you can go in together on a family plan, which is usually a little bit cheaper. You'll save a little money as a group. And then for international calling, you know, now we are pretty lucky that there are some great options for calling people internationally for free. So you can, you know, such as Skype, you can use Skype to call your family for free. And then, are you traveling? You can put your phone account on hold, which is called suspend without billing. Some phone companies will do that. So if you want to pause your account with them. Okay. So another really important thing to think about is planning for emergencies. So to do that, you will want to have an emergency fund. So you can use this template to determine how much that would be for yourself. So in this case, if there's an unexpected change in your financial situation, and suddenly you don't have some of the income that you thought you were going to have, then you can still get by for a few months without any trouble. So ideally, you want to save about 3 months worth. So how much do you spend on groceries each month? Let's go back to what we said before. I think it was 250. So if you spend 250 a month on groceries, then times 3, then you want to save $750 in your emergency fund for groceries. So you want to go down the list and determine how much would you need for each of these for 3 months. Okay. And then don't forget about setting goals for your budget. You can have short-term goals, medium-term goals, and long-term goals. So for example, a short-term goal could be you need a new laptop battery. Well, the laptop battery costs $70 and you need to buy it by September. So let's say you have 7 weeks, then you only need to save $10 a week, and then you're able to buy that battery. Or let's look at the long-term goal. Let's say you want to have a deposit, the security deposit, to rent an apartment after you move out of the on-campus housing. Okay, so if you're going to do that in September of 2023, then that would give you about 15 months to save $4,000. And to do that every week, you would need to save $60 to $70. So as you're doing your budget each month, you can look at your extra and set some aside and say, okay, this week, $60 is going to go towards that rent deposit for next September 2023. Okay. All right, and then one note is funding and your visa status. As you all know, when you filled out the NIF, you had to provide us with funding documents. That's because federal regulations actually require that F1 and J1 international students show sufficient funds to cover the cost of attendance. And the amount you were required to show us is a minimum estimate. Your actual expenses may vary. So although, we said in the NIF, this is what we think you need for a year, it could end up being more or less that you actually need. So let's talk about some financial resources. Cal Student Central, employment, fellowships and scholarships, biofinancial aid, and loans. Okay, so to start, Cal Student Central. So through Cal Student Central, you can set up a fee payment plan for your tuition and fees. And so let's say, so basically, instead of paying your full tuition and fees in one payment right at the beginning of the semester, instead, they will actually break up your payment into 5 installments that you can pay slowly over time. So that can be very helpful for a lot of students. And you want to just pay attention to the deadlines because you would have 5 different due dates when you have to make those payment plan payments. Also, there are emergency loans through Cal Student Central. They have living expense loans up to $1,000, and they have loans for fees up to $1,430, and that is to help get you registered if you have a hold on your account and you're not able to register for classes. If you have a hold due to owing money. These are interest-free, and you have to repay them within 60 days. So it's not a long-term solution, but it can help you for short term if you need a little extra help. Okay. So what about income? Most students rely on their parents or family for their funding. You can also have an on-campus job, and graduate students can have on-campus teaching and research positions. So a graduate teaching position would be called a GSI, and a graduate research position would be a GSR position. And those will pay a little bit more than just a minimum wage on-campus job. A minimum wage on-campus job could be something like working in the dining hall or something like that. And then paid internships. There are options for paid internships, but that's not until after you've completed 2 full-time semesters in your program, and you have to have authorization from bio. As you're getting closer to your 3rd semester, if that's something you're interested in, just come talk to us and we can go over your options with you. Also, some students choose to have a summer job back at home. So if you are leaving the US in the summer to go back to your home country over the annual summer vacation, and you work for a non-US based company in your country, that's totally fine. You can also look into scholarships and or department support directly from your department. And unfortunately, international students are not eligible for US federal financial aid and loans. So that would be the financial aid that US students can get directly from the US government. International students are not eligible. So regarding scholarships and fellowships, we have a few resources for you that you can access through this slide. The UC Berkeley Scholarship Connection, the Berkeley International Office Financial Aid page, your academic department, Cal Alumni Association, Berkeley International Clubs, undergraduate research apprentice program, and different prizes and honors. So for scholarships and fellowships, those can come from sometimes from the government in your home country. They can come from a religious organization. They can come from a community organization, or they could also come from an international organization. And do be aware of scams. There are unfortunately some scholarship scams on the internet. So if you find a site or a service that charges a fee to locate scholarships or that guarantees a grant, but it seems like it's too good to be true, definitely be cautious because if it seems too good to be true, it often is too good to be true. Okay, and remember that scholarships are highly competitive and they can be very time consuming. A lot of the applications for scholarships are very in-depth. They will request a lot of information from you. You may have to prepare certain things depending on your program and what sort of work you're doing here at UC Berkeley. There's more information online, but yeah, just do keep in mind that they are competitive and they take a lot of time. So, biofinancial aid. Like I mentioned, you are not eligible for federal financial aid options, but we are lucky to be able to offer some financial aid directly to international students. And so this is for emergency need-based funding to go towards your tuition, fees, and living expenses. One thing to keep in mind is you are not eligible for any biofinancial aid until after you've completed 2 full-time semesters in your program. Our financial aid is offered 2 times per year in the fall and the spring, so keep an eye out in your email. We will send a notification anytime our financial aid application opens for you to apply. But again, you will be eligible after 2 semesters. And as far as student loans go, institutional loans for international students are pretty limited. And again, US federal loans are not an option for you as an international student. We offer a loan directly through Bio. It's called the SHE loan, and the applications are from our office. And again, you must have completed 2 semesters in your current visa status or experience a sudden change in your financial situation. These loans are interest-free while you're in school. and you do need a social security number to receive that loan, but you can talk to us about that when that comes up. Private loans, those will usually require a U.S. citizen or permanent resident as a cosigner. And you'll want to be aware of very high interest rates due to the lack of credit history. So you, as a new person coming to the US, you don't have a credit history here. You don't have a history of paying your phone bill. You don't have a history of paying your water bill, your electricity bill. That because you don't have a credit history to show a lender that you are going to make your payments on time, they might have very high interest rates for you. But for loans, you can talk to your bank. That's the best place probably for you to go. And definitely shop around. Don't take the first offer you come across. See what's out there and what sort of comparisons you can find. And make sure you read the fine print, meaning look into the details about your loan and make sure you understand everything that is involved with the interest and repayment and all of that. Okay. All right, so managing financial stress, a few final tips. Okay, so money can be quite stressful for all of us. You're not alone. Many of your friends and classmates will struggle with financial strain or issues during their college years. You can support each other. You can share tips and talk openly. It's something we all experience, so don't be shy about talking about it. And then you can help each other, point each other to different campus resources. So understand what you can control and what you can't control. Do your best to obtain financial resources and to budget. Definitely budget. Put boundaries between financial issues and some other parts of life. Still enjoy living other parts of life now, and be willing to be realistic and face the worst, but still be optimistic about life. And pay attention to your own stress level. So notice in what ways you're affected by the stress. What are some of the physical symptoms that you experience from stress? What are the ways that you are thinking? What are the ways you are feeling? What are the ways you are acting? So try to be aware of if you are stressed and why you are stressed. And notice the extent of how you are affected by stress. So how does it affect your daily routine? How does it affect your classwork? How does it affect your social life and your friendships? And be sure to attend to basic self-care. One of the best things you can do when you have some stress from classes or money or whatever kind of stress, make sure you're eating, make sure you're sleeping, get some exercise, and make sure that you are spending time with friends. And of course, get help and support if you need it, if you're stressed. You don't want to isolate yourself when you're stressed. Get some support from family, from your good friends, or you can seek some professional assistance early on. Don't wait until the stress is at a level 10. Even if the stress is at a level 3, it could be time to seek some professional assistance. There are counseling services in the Tang Center. So the Tang Center is the medical center here on campus, and you can go there when you're sick, if you have an injury, but you can also go there to talk to someone about your stress. And also there's, the bio advisors. We're here, come talk to us. We can talk to you about our financial aid options and give you some advice, and we're great listeners. So, if you're feeling any of this stress, don't hesitate to stop in and talk with one of us. So I would say any questions, but I know that there are. Let me just pull up the chat. I know there's been some in there. We'll see, get as many of these as we can. Okay. Okay. I think this is where we left off. Regarding first-time expenses, is there any way of saving money with the health? With the health insurance. As I have never been to the USA, I do not know if other accepted insurances such as ISOA are okay. I do know that if you want to waive the ship insurance, the insurance that you have has to be as good as or better than ship, and ship has really great coverage. So if your plan doesn't cover everything that is covered by ship, it won't be acceptable. So I would just Google UC Berkeley ship, and you can find their contact information. So talk to them directly about what if they can let you know if your insurance is acceptable. Okay, if I don't use cash very often, would you recommend to use a savings account? That's up to you, but a savings account will not have a debit card. So you'll probably, I would say most students probably want a checking account, because that will give you a debit card that you can use like a credit card, you know, when you buy things. So that would be my recommendation. Because if you had a savings account, actually you would always need to go pull out money to use it, because you wouldn't have a debit card. Are there any student discounts we should know of? Do we get a student discount for BART? We talked about this a little bit. So the buses in Alameda County will be free for you, but you unfortunately do not get a discount for BART. Only, well, unless you're still not yet 18. So if you're 17 years old or younger, then you get a discount. Okay. Okay, I went on the Bears Success webpage, but I don't see the budget worksheet shown on the slide, only a template. Okay, I will have to look for that. Okay, Bears Success. Okay, I'll check for that, and if I can find it, I'll update it in the slides before we send them out. Hopefully I can update that. Can we go on a family plan? So this would be for a cell phone. Can we go on a family plan if we are a group living in different states? Ooh, that's a very good question. I don't know. I'm gonna say I think so, because you know a family could be parents who live in one state and then their child goes to college in another state, but they are still on a family plan together. So I'm going to say I think so, but definitely check with the cell phone provider directly. Can undergraduate students also get a research job? You cannot get a GSR position, graduate student researcher position, but there may be opportunities for you to work directly with a professor on campus. So you would just want to talk with your professors and see if they have any on-campus positions that they can offer you, but definitely a possibility. Yeah. Is it advisable to get an on-campus job for international first-year undergrad students? This is a great question, and you know, it really is going to be up to you. And typically, our advice is, you know, for your first year, you really want to focus on your studies, especially as an international student. You know, you're going to be adjusting to a new country, a new culture, a new, you know, there's going to be so many new things around you. and you're starting a new program, you're starting a program in English, you know, your first year is going to be a lot for you to adjust to. So if possible, we would advise, you know, if at all possible, to try to focus on your studies for the first year. But again, you know, it's just really gonna depend, you know, from student to student, really what you think you can manage for the first year. And if you want advice for your specific situation, definitely feel free to drop into our virtual advising hours, and we can talk to you about your specific situation. Is there a possibility to earn a scholarship based on merit? I mean, good scores. There is. So through the Bio Financial Aid, we do offer a merit-based scholarship. But again, that is only for once you've completed 2 full-time semesters. So that will not be available for you right away. But in the future, you can apply for the bio merit-based scholarship. And all of our scholarships and grants will all be one application each fall and spring. Okay, can I get the recording? Yes, the recording will be available. I believe it will be emailed out, or else it will be on our website, but we are recording this right now. Okay, what is the family salary average for eligible bio financial aid? And is it possible at some point during the undergraduate program to become a home fees student, Cal resident? Okay, so for the first part of the question, there isn't really an average for eligibility for the bio financial aid awards. You know, just everyone, you know, if you need the help, just apply. It depends, you know, our funding can change year to year. Our funding, there's a lot of factors that go into our funding and how much money we have to give to students. So there isn't really an average amount that will make you eligible. So so yeah, just apply if you feel like you are a good fit and you need that after 2 semesters. Okay, what are some unforeseen expenses that people usually only find out when they get to Berkeley? I think we really went over most of them. I think more than unforeseen expenses, my personal advice would be just, you know, really keep in mind that the Bay Area is expensive. So housing is quite expensive here. So that can be a little bit of a surprise for some students. But otherwise, you know, it's just all of your basic necessities, and food. You know, food prices can be a bit expensive sometimes. But otherwise, that's about it. Okay, yes, we will share the recording. Let me find out. Let me just check on that. Okay, I'll find out about the recording if it's going to be emailed to you. Okay, someone asked, can I bring my phone from my country, or is it mandatory to buy it in the US? You can usually bring a phone from your own country, but you may just want to I don't want to guarantee, I can't promise you that every phone from outside of the US will work with phone companies here. So I don't want to guarantee that for you, but you know, feel free to bring it with you and try, and maybe keep in mind that if it doesn't work, you'll just have to buy a phone here, or you know, you could contact one of those phone providers directly, contact their customer support teams and let them know what kind of phone you have and that it's from outside the US, and would it work. Does the health insurance I have through UC Berkeley cover my wife, or should we find another insurance for her? if you have a dependent coming with you, it wouldn't, your, you would have to look at your plan. If you're just signing up for yourself, your wife wouldn't be covered automatically. You would have to add coverage for her. So you'll always end up paying more. So you'll have to pay for coverage for yourself, and you will have to pay for coverage for your wife. So it wouldn't be included in the coverage that's just for you. Do you know if we will get a social security number being a UC EAP student? So to get a social security number, you have to have a job. So that's one requirement rather than what sort of student you are. So if you have an on-campus job, you can go ahead and get a social security number, or off campus, but that just won't apply to any of you for the first year. So, but in your first year, you can work on campus and then get a social security number. Can we purchase laptops and devices on campus? Is it better? That I don't know. I'm not familiar with an option to purchase laptops or computers directly on campus. So to my knowledge, no, that's not an option, but you might want to check with the UC Berkeley bookstore. They would probably be your best resource for that. Okay, I've heard of the term ITIN. What is it and how do we get it? Also, what's the difference between it and the social security number? Okay, so an ITIN is another kind of tax identification number, which is similar to the social security number. You don't need both. If you can get an ITIN when you don't have a job, but to get an ITIN, you would have to have some sort of fellowship or scholarship or grant. So some sort of money that's coming to you would then require you to apply for an ITIN. But they both function the same, ITINs and social security numbers. But once if you got an ITIN, then later, if you got a job, then you would get a social security number, and then you would no longer use your ITIN. You would only use your social security number. Someone asked, how does Flywire and Western Union Global Pay work? Can you tell us more details about the international payment? So unfortunately, I'm not familiar with Flywire. I do know Western Union, but I'm not familiar specifically with their global pay option. And I'm guessing this would be for getting a money transfer from another country, which I'm sorry, I don't know Flywire, but Western Union you can use to receive money. So your family in your home country it would be called wiring. They would wire you the money through Western Union for you to receive money from them. And I'm guessing Flywire might be similar, but I'm sorry, I don't know more about that. Can you reapply for a MasterCard scholarship once you're a student? This is very specific to the MasterCard Foundation scholars. So for this question, go ahead and come into our advising hours so we can talk to you more about that, because that's very specific. That's a very specific scholarship that we can look into more with you in advising. So our virtual advising is Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday from 10 a.m. to noon and from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. So if you just go to the bio website, there's actually a banner across the top with a link to our our student services page. Click that and you'll find information about how to join us in advising. So come to advising to talk about that with us. Okay, is there a difference between paying with a US issued Visa debit card and a Visa debit card from our country? Um, Not necessarily, but you will want to be aware that there could be higher fees for you if you are using a card from your country. So check with your bank so yeah, contact your bank and let them know you want to use your debit card in the US and just ask them if they will be charging you extra fees if you do that. Um, Okay, and can you use the Cal One card for shopping, especially groceries, etc.? So to clarify, the Cal One card is your student ID only. So it's just your little ID with your picture on it. And so with that card, you can ride the buses for free, and you'll need it for various things around campus. And if you receive a student discount somewhere, you'll have to show that card. But it's not like a debit card in any way. It's it's not used like to purchase things, just as an identification for you. Yeah. Okay. Wow. Well, that was a lot of questions. Okay, we got another one. How much luggage do you recommend bringing as a freshman undergraduate student? That's a good question. So yeah, that's tricky because you know you want to bring as much as you can with you, so you don't have to buy everything here in the U.S. But that would depend. For international flights, I would check with your airline and see how much they charge. If you fly domestically within the United States, a lot of airlines will charge you like $50 to bring a bag for each bag. But for international flights, I don't know, it could be more. So that's what I would say to consider. Not necessarily like a certain number is the right amount, but how much are you going to pay? So if they charge you $100 per bag and you bring 2 bags, you'll just want to think, is the $200 I'm spending to bring all this stuff with me worth it, or should I just bring 1 bag and just use that $100 to buy some new things when you get here? So that's kind of a toss-up. There are some more affordable places to buy some of like your necessities. So, if you don't want to bring like towels and all those sorts of things, you can find those fairly cheaply here. Yeah, so that would be my recommendation. And also, if you are think about how you are getting from the airport to the East Bay, because it's a bit of a journey. So, if you're taking BART, I definitely wouldn't recommend more than 2 bags, or you're going to have a pretty hard time dealing with your luggage on BART. If you take a taxi, you should be fine. And then if you're going to take a shuttle from the airport, then I would recommend asking the shuttle service how many bags you can have, because they might also charge you for extra bags. So yeah, just be aware that there could be some extra charges you want to think about. I am not sure what the I-20 is. Well, I get that when I'm on a J1 visa. Okay, you're correct. So that slide mentioned you would need an I-20 to start a bank account. That is specific to F1 students. So F1 students get a document called an I-20, but since you're going to be a J1 student, your document is actually called a DS 2019. So when you open your bank account, you'll want to take your DS 2019, and I should update that slide to clarify that. Yeah, the I-20 is only for students on an F visa. Do you consider that clothes are cheap in the Bay Area? Um, that depends. There are some affordable options. There are some just down the street from campus, there's a place where you can sell your clothes and then buy like and then buy used clothes from the store. So places like that can be pretty affordable. Um, and then if you have clothes and then you don't want them anymore, you can go try to sell them to get some money back on your clothes. So it just kind of depends, you know, if you want to be thrifty and shop at some of the more affordable places. There are some very expensive clothes in the Bay Area, but then there are some more affordable options. But you might just have to kind of shop around a little bit. Yeah, to find those, but you can find some pretty good sales and pretty good deals. Definitely. Yeah. How busy are the trains? Are there any empty seats usually? That totally depends on the time of day and the day of the week also. So since COVID started, BART has been a little bit less crowded, but it is picking back up again. There are more people on it. So, you know, if you fly into SFO on a Monday at 5 p.m., your train is going to be very full, but the line starts at the airport, so you'll get a seat. But by the time your train goes through San Francisco, it's going to be very crowded with people coming home to the East Bay after work. But the weekends, it's not as busy, and like during the middle of the day. So if you can avoid the rush hour, which is the morning when everyone's going to work, and the evening when everyone's going home from work, that's when it's going to be easier to ride on BART. What would be examples of relatively cheap stores to get groceries or house supplies? There were a few on one of the slides. You'll see on one of the slides there were some resources for ways to save money, and we mentioned Berkeley Bowl. So for groceries, we mentioned Berkeley Bowl. Let's see if I can just find that slide really quick. Oh, let me go back. Okay, so yeah, there's Berkeley Bowl, there's Lucky's, there's Ranch 99 Asian Market, and Grocery Outlet. Those are all stores with good options for more affordable groceries. And house supplies. There is an IKEA in Emeryville, which is a little bit south of Berkeley, but you could take a bus there and you could get things from IKEA. That's one of the more affordable places. And then there's also stores like Target. They sell a lot of home goods that are pretty affordable. The Target that's right by campus is very small and they don't sell very much, but there are some larger Target stores where you can find some pretty good home supplies. Would it be possible or a good idea to start a bank account before arriving in the US? My guess is no. I don't think you would even be able to. More than likely, you would have to be here in the US before you can open the bank account. If not, there may be an option to open it online. You know, since COVID, a lot of things have changed, so banks might be more willing to open accounts online, but in the past, you've always had to go in person down to the bank and open your account there inside the actual bank. What do you think about bringing our luggage from the airport to Cal using BART? Do you think it's safe? You know, you always just want to be careful. So if you are going to have a lot of bags, just make sure you're paying attention to your bags. And, you know, I would say don't have them just out in the aisle next to you. If you can get a seat where you put your bag there and then you sit next to it, that would be good. But, you know, BART is generally pretty safe, but, you know, with all public transportation, you just want to always be paying attention and know what's going on around you. Yeah, so that would be my recommendation. Okay. All right, these will be the last two questions, and then we're going to have to end. So do you have to book the BART train tickets in advance, or can you do it at the moment when you get there? Good question. So you don't have to do it in advance. They have machines that you just walk up to, and you can use your debit card or you can use cash, and you have to select where you're going. Well, there's a little chart on the wall that says how much it costs to where you're going. So let's say you're going to go to downtown Berkeley. You would look and it would say to downtown Berkeley, $10.45. Then you can just put $10.45 on your card. You can also put $50 on your card if you want to just not think about it and just have money ready on your card for next time. They give you a reusable card that you pay with every time. So yeah, you can do that right at the BART station. Okay, and then last question, which do you recommend to apply for first, the bank account or the mobile account? That's a good question. I would say, how quickly do you need a phone would be the thing to think about, but a bank account is going to be really important, and I would say, get that opened as soon as you can, because that's something you want to take care of. And if there's like any sort of issue, they need some sort of paperwork from you and you need to go back, it's highly unlikely. You should be able to open it pretty smoothly, but just in case, I would say get started on opening your bank account right away if you can. And then, but one won't affect the other. So yeah, as far as like if one is better to do so that it helps the other one, that's not the case. So it's whichever one you really, how quickly do you need a phone, I guess would be your question that you'd want to think about, how quick you want to start calling people. But yes, okay. This was a lot of questions. That's great. I'm sorry. I wish we had more time, but we are out of time, so we can't ask any more questions. But if there is anything that you, let me just let you know. So I checked with Anna. Okay, yes, the slides for this presentation are going to be emailed to you. So we will email you the slides. If you have any follow-up questions or if you think of anything afterwards, you can email us. Let me just put the email in the chat. You can just email internationaloffice@berkeley.edu, or you can come to our advising, which I'm just going to get the link to that for you. Put that in the chat. Okay, so also in the chat now, there is a link to our virtual advising page. So that's got our hours and the steps for how you want to sign in to talk to us. So let us know if you have more questions. And once you get here, definitely let us know if you need help with your financial needs or any questions or just anything else that we can help with. Thank you all so much for joining me today. And we really look forward to having you all here soon. Okay. Oh, I don't think we can see the virtual advising link. Ah, thank you, whoever caught that. You're right. Okay, there is the International Office email address. And that is the link to our virtual student advising page. I'll leave that up for a second so you can grab that if you need those. Sorry for the confusion, but those are there now. And yes, email us or drop into advising, whatever you'd like to do. Yes, and we're really looking forward to having you all here this fall. Hope you all have a great day. Bye.